Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to our channel and thank you for listening. Now we're going to speak on the history of Labor Day, which Jamaica celebrates today. It represents more than a simple day of painting, planting trees, doing some long needed work in your yard, or participating in a community Labor Day project. This day stems from protests, riots, even arrest and loss of life, a former queen's birthday, and it goes back beyond Jamaica's independence all the way to the 1930s. So, what was happening in Jamaica at the time? As you may know, that they say that full emancipation happened in the 1830s, but the shackles were far from removed. The plantation owners saw it as same rider, same mule, just a different path they had to take. Jamaica was still under the British rule at the time. Inhumane treatment continued as workers tried to navigate from being slaves to something more. By the 1930s, though a working system was somewhat established, workers were grossly underpaid, mistreated, and Jamaicans, especially black or poor Jamaicans, were at the bottom of the pile. Them they just fed up. They needed better pay, opportunities, working and living conditions, and by the year 1938, the unrest was at one of its pinnacle. Protests, strikes, riots, and industrial action were the order of the day island-wide. They wanted to be free of extreme working conditions of repression, exploitation, and racism. Jamaica was no stranger to riots and standing up for their rights no matter what it cost them. In fact, these protests or riots often led to some change. Eventually, things came to a head at the Kingston waterfront when the United Fruit Company workers walked off the job, which became known as the Kingston labor strike in Jamaica in 1938. This resulted in riots and 46 deaths. At least 429 were injured, with thousands detained and prosecuted. Women played a crucial role at almost every level of the popular protests. We must also note the Jamaican Labor Rebellion, which was sparked in late April 1938 by a strike for $1 a day by construction workers who were building a massive new factory for the West Indies Sugar Company owned by Tate and Lyle. Imagine that, fighting for $1 a day. And could you even get that? Wow. These protests, detainment, and loss of life were not in vain. The trade union movement was strengthened, and groups such as the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union were established. Do note this is a very concise account of what happened. There's much more, and we plan to do a more detailed video and article so that you can read who was involved and what exactly took place as it relates to the details. Now let's continue with the general account. In the 1960s, Premier Norman Washington Manley replaced Empire Day, May the 24th, which was the celebration of Queen Victoria's birthday, with Labor Day for May 23rd. This was done because the island became an independent nation, and it was more relevant to mark the events leading to the genesis of the country's labor movement. Between 1960 and 1970, Labor Day was mainly celebrated in the corporate area by the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union and the National Workers Union, backed by both political parties in the form of public rally meetings and marches. In 1962, however, a political motivated clash broke out during the Labor Day March, and that resulted in the death of one woman and the injury of over a dozen police officers who had to, you know, they had to put tear gas to quell the disturbance. Another round of clashes in 1966 led to the banning of Labor Day marches in the corporate area. But motivated by a desire to inspire national unity, late Prime Minister Michael Manley conceptualized a team, put, put work into Labor Day in 1972, and Labor Day as we know it was born. Manley called on Jamaicans to understand the importance of labor to nation building through voluntary community work. It was the first time Jamaicans were asked to give up a part or all of their public holidays to work on a community project. Labor Day has not only been a public holiday but also a day of community involvement around the country. It has evolved out of the struggle to free workers from the extreme conditions. In 1989, after an 8-year absence of wide-scale island Labor Day projects, the Jamaican government introduced themes as a guide for persons to assist in Labor Day activities. The identification of a theme was meant to foster wider national involvement and solidarity, but did not compel citizens to be bound by the theme. Now, these themes included a wide range of issues such as health and environment, youth and the community, respect for the elders and the vulnerable, road safety, and the planting of trees. The first national project was the Palisades Road, now known as the Norman Manley Highway, and Michael Manley himself led the way by taking part in clearing land and planting trees to beautify the area. His invitation to the nation resulted in a tremendous national response, and 600 projects, mainly of a beautification nature, were identified across the island. Since then, Jamaica has used the day to appeal to national pride, interest, and dignity of the people who mobilized the nation to put labor into Labor Day. Civic groups and individuals across the island have planted projects of their own, such as the refurbishing of schools, community centers, state institutions, and other public and private buildings. Today, we commemorate the struggle of the working class, which resulted in the historical labor rebellion of 38, which we now use as a springboard for national pride. We hope you found that information valuable and will, you know, put the labor in Labor Day with much pride to let those before us who sacrifices, protests, lost their life, that their efforts are still not in vain as we continue to raise the flag high and make Jamaica the best it can be. Whether they are home at abroad, I think those in the diaspora can also celebrate because Jamaica is not just physical landscape. Jamaica, it's the people. This year's theme is called Plant a Tree for Life, promoting climate change mitigation, food security, and road safety. So let us know, are you planting a tree today? What are you doing for Labor Day? Tell us in the comments, and we'll share what we can as we observe a national holiday with pride. Thank you to all those who contributed throughout the years to Labor Day projects and to those of 1938. We salute you.